This is the first video in a series of lower 6th Edexcel A-level maths videos. So this one is on straight line graphs, which is chapter 5 in the year 1 pure textbook. So let's have a look. We've got 2 lines and we've been given the equation for one and 2 coordinates on the other. And it is asking us to give full reasons for why we think they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So hopefully you are thinking if we're looking at parallel, perpendicular, or neither, then we're thinking about gradient only. We don't need any other information, only gradient. Now, if they're parallel, they're going to have the same gradient. If they are perpendicular, they will be the negative reciprocal of the other. Okay, and then if they're neither, they don't fit into either of those categories. So let's have a look at L1 to start with. Now, L1 is in this format where we've got all integers equals 0. So that format doesn't help us with finding the gradient. So we need to turn that into the y equals mx plus c format. So if we've got 2x plus 3y plus 5 equals 0, we want to make y the subject. Okay, well, if I get 3y on its own first, I'm going to minus 2x and minus 5 to the other side. Okay, and then we divide both sides by 3. Now, at this point, some people write this all over 3. But the problem is we want the m out of y equals mx plus c. So we need to have these as 2 separate terms, the mx part and the plus c part. So we're going to divide each term separately by 3. So we get that. Okay, so we can see our gradient for L1, so ML1, is minus 2/3. Okay, and then we're going to look at L2. Now, we've been given the 2 coordinates for L2, and you just use your formula, change in y over change in x. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you take the y coordinates and you subtract them. And notice if I started here with 7, I need to start here on the x coordinates with 1. So this is that 1 minus 5. So y coordinate subtracted over x coordinate subtracted. Then we get 6 over negative 4, which simplifies to 3 over 2, and we can just put that minus in the front, because if one of those are negative, the whole thing is negative. Okay, now it looks like maybe they are negative reciprocals of each other, because one is sort of the flipped version of the other. Okay, but for them to be perpendicular, they need to be a negative reciprocal. That means they need to be different signs. Okay, so one needs to be positive, one needs to be negative. So they're not the same gradient, they're not the negative reciprocal, so they're neither. Now it says determine giving full reasons why. So you need to make sure you write this full conclusion, which I'll do now. Okay, so you've seen here that I said they're not, the product is not minus 1, therefore they are not perpendicular. Now, I said before about negative reciprocals. The reason we want a negative reciprocal, so one being positive, one being negative, is because we want the product, when we multiply them, to be negative 1 if they're perpendicular. But when they're both negative, when we multiply them, we get positive 1. Okay, and when you think about perpendicular lines, they are a 90-degree angle to each other. So one definitely has to be positive and one definitely has to be negative. Okay, there we go. Hopefully that was helpful.